Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Billy Napier, the Florida Gators, wrapping up fall camp. And Dill, it is about that time to call our shot, predict this depth chart rolling into 2025. And we were making our small changes to this depth chart this morning. And we both looked at each other and we're like, what we're seeing on paper right now, like this is one from a pure on paper standpoint. This is one of the most complete and talented football teams that you see in the country. Now, the national media will get up and talk about Florida. They'll talk DJ Lagway. They might reference a guy like Dallas Wilson, maybe Tyreek Sapp, Caleb Banks. The thing that continues to stand out to me is how deep this football team is. And to the Florida fans that follow this sport closely, you know that's the separator in this conference. Look, every team in the SEC, they have talent on the football field. What has separated a team like Georgia or a team like Alabama over the last decade? They've been deep. They've been the deepest teams that we've seen in this conference. Still, I look at Florida going into 2025 and say, yeah, you make no mistake about it. They have some of the best players in the sport on this roster in 2025. The depth of this football team has the opportunity to separate Florida in 2025. And like golf clap for Billy Napier. I mean, the player retention that this program has seen has been elite. And look, I've been critical of Billy Napier plenty over the last couple of years. You got a lot of guys that are in the two deep, very well could have transferred and started at other SEC programs or other programs across the country. Keeping those players on your roster, that's going to be huge going forward in the sport, and it's going to be huge for Florida going into 2025. When you mix top-end talent with really good depth, that's how you get special football teams, and that's what Florida can be going into 2025. You make no mistake about it. Fired up to get into this one. A lot of intriguing position battles to talk about. Before we get into it, as always, the Florida fans, appreciate you guys. It's been so fun talking this football team. The amount of support that this fan base has shown the boys over the last couple of months has been amazing. Cannot thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Hey, other thing, look, if you're a Florida fan watching this episode, chances are you got some takes. Would love to hear some takes, some call your shots. Hey, when we're predicting depth charts, kind of calling our shots a little bit. As much as I wish I had a direct line to Billy, I don't. So I'm kind of making my takes too. Would love to hear from you guys. Dill, DJ Lagway, quarterback one. We can move on. Running back room. I think you have a clear top two in Jaden Baugh and Jacoby Jackson. My question to you is, how do you think the distribution of workload looks for Florida going into 2025 with this running back room?
I'm guessing 60-40-ish. Jaden Baugh getting 60% of the carries and then the 40% being sprinkled out by everybody else. Mostly.
Well, see, I was going to say, I think there's a separation between the top two, in my opinion. You keep, sorry, that's my fault. You keep going.
No, like, of course, Jacoby Jackson to the two. And I just look like in big moments, like against Texas or Miami or LSU, those like marquee games, and Florida's got a bunch of them.
Yeah.
I do think Jaden Baugh's got to get 70-75% of the carries because there's some separation, frankly, from him to Jacoby Jackson in my mind, especially with his ability to run against really good teams. Like Jacoby Jackson, like when you play Tennessee, you play Ole Miss, like I think the carry share maybe gets a little even.
Did you just put Tennessee in the mid-tier of the SEC?
No, I just think Florida's put themselves in a different tier than those teams this year. Like this Florida team, if they're going to be as good as I think they're going to be, there's some separation between them, Ole Miss, Florida State, Tennessee right now. Again, Texas is like a game. That's who Florida's got to have their eyes on. They should be beating those other teams. In there, I do think your carry distribution should look a little bit different because Jacoby Jackson is a really good running back. This is
100%. 100%. I think I think they're both underrated because I'm talking about Jaden Baugh. Like, I think he can be a top 5 back in the country this year. And Dill, here's the thing that I'll mention with Jaden Baugh is he's capable of taking the lion's share of reps. In fact, if I'm Billy Napier and I know I have the offensive line I do, I want to go make a team like LSU tackle Jaden Baugh 30 times a game. And there's not a lot of running backs that can handle that kind of workload. Well, guess what? Jaden Baugh sure is one of them. And you look at Florida, and we talked about this, have the opportunity to win games in so many different ways. One of those ways is I'm just going to grind you into the dirt. Like, I'm going to lean on my big offensive line, my veteran offensive line, and I'm going to lean on my 225-pound running back. I think he might be heavier than that. Say, go tackle Jaden Baugh 30 times a game. I don't know if many defenses, even in the SEC, want to do that. And so I'm kind of with you. Like, in those big games, I think you might see
Jaden Baugh runs much better to me when things aren't perfect. Like, his vision's really good. He can run through contact. I think he's got a bit of a different gear in those moments where, again, like, you'd like to think your offensive line can go dominate football games. You're probably not going to just go wall to wall dominate a team like Texas up front. I do think Jaden Baugh gives you a little bit more in terms of his ability to find things.
Keeping you on schedule, right? Keeping you on schedule against those big games. And, like, look, what's the big question mark we have for DJ Lagway going into 2025 is we want to see him do the simple stuff more routinely. Well, staying on schedule, like 2nd and 6, 3rd and 2, moving the chains, that gonna help DJ Lagway do the simple stuff more routinely. The wide receiver room, well, look, there was a point in the offseason where we thought this was gonna be a weak spot for Florida in 2025. We were banging the table for Florida to go out and add some transfer portal wide receivers. Now we're looking at this wide receiver room and say, can you name me 5 better wide receiver rooms in the SEC? Because I don't know if you can. Here's the thing that I don't even know if many Florida fans realize this, that Florida was not deep in this room at all, especially when Eugene Wilson went down. Though Elijah Badger had 61 targets. Tremere Dike had 65 targets. There was not another pass catcher on this football team last year that had over 30. It was pretty one-dimensional with those two cats. And Dill, what I would say is those wide receivers themselves, although very good, kind of one-dimensional too. Like, they just work vertically down the field. You got all these national media analysts banging the table for, hey, DJ Lagway needs to take what's there more. Who was he throwing to take what's there? His best 2 pass catchers were very clearly vertical pass catchers. Well, going into 2025, you have your verticality. Like Dallas Wilson, J. Mike, Aiden Mizell, that they can stretch the field, give you that verticality. And we know DJ Lagway can throw a hell of a deep ball. Well, now you have Eugene Wilson. Now you have Vernell Brown that can work underneath and do some of that simple stuff. Here's my question for you. How many pass catchers do you think have over 30 targets for this football team in 2025?
I think it's going to be 4. I mean, obviously, those first 3 you have J. Mike, Dallas, Eugene. They're all, of course, going to get their 30. I think one of Vernell Brown, Naden Mizell might get or will get it. I'm not sure both will, because to me, it's more about, like, how are you going to take those top 3 or maybe that 4th guy off the field too much? Because I think J. Michael Sturdivant especially is like a wildly underrated player, because I don't think he is one-dimensional at all. Like, I think you go back to, like, you've seen moments where, yes, I know he can attack down the field, but he's a good possession receiver. He can catch through contact. He runs good routes. I think he's going to get a ton of targets. I think Eugene's going to get a lot. I just don't know that there's enough room for that 5th guy.
I have a question. Do you think how big do you think the separation is? Because when Eugene Wilson's been working through an injury during fall camp, same thing for Dallas Wilson. Like, the feedback we've got, people forget how good Vernell Brown was coming out of high school, man. He's actually ranked higher than Dallas Wilson to a lot of recruiting services. And I feel like we forgot about Vernell Brown because Dallas Wilson is a super flashy and supercharged wide receiver. Here's the thing that I would push back against. Both Aiden Mizell and Vernell Brown, they're so easy to get involved. Vernell Brown's one of the best route runners on this football team, if not the best. Then I look at Aiden Mizell and say yards after the catch, he's pretty dang dynamic, can certainly work vertically down the field as well. It ain't going to be hard to include these other 2. And I guess the pushback I would have is I don't know if the separation's as wide as you think. Like, I think you got 5 wide receivers that you want to get involved. I do think that's the cutoff, though. You know, you're looking at a guy like Tank.
But I also think you got to consider the fact that this team's going to run the ball.
I agree.
30 for 5 guys is a lot of targets. And again, I probably do think J. Mike's going to get a zillion targets to me. I think he's going to really kind of lead this team in target share, because he's a guy that I'll just like sit on. I think he is wildly underrated.
And I ain't necessarily disagreeing. Here's the other thing is, like, how much 2 tight end sets does Florida decide to run?
I don't want to see a ton of 2 tight end sets right now. You got too good of wide receivers if you're running a ton.
So, like, last year, I know Florida fans would get pissed about it. It's like, what wide receivers were you itching to get on the football field when Eugene Wilson went down? Going into 2025, I got 5 guys that I need on the football field a decent amount. And not a shot, but I don't think your tight end room is like super dynamic. Like Hayden Hansen can block his tail off. Tony Livingston can do some good things. The pass catching production going to come from these wide receivers, and we'll see if Billy Napier leans into that. It probably does have a little bit to do with, hey, how much two tight end sets do we want to run, and how much are we going to run the football? 2025 offensive line. Dude, nails, man. And I, from everything we've heard, like they've stayed healthy up front. Like there's a lot of teams in fall camp that are like playing musical chairs with their front five going into 2025. And Florida's got a bunch of guys that have played a lot of football together. My storyline is Bryce Lovett. Like I haven't heard a peep about a position battle there at right tackle, which leads me to believe that he's probably taken that job and absolutely have run with it. I trust Rod Kearney. Like Fletcher Westfall going into year 2 can be your swing tackle. The starting five is dynamite. I don't think I'm breaking any news to Florida fans. Love what they have in the depth. And you can't ignore the development that we've seen from this unit. Like I trust this coaching staff getting this offensive line to that max level in 2025.
And that's another thing. Like you talk about teams like, oh, did they get their offensive line better? It's like, yeah, I mean, if you assume development and like you just look at the track record of this offensive line's
I
journey,
agree, man.
it started 2 years ago was horrible. Like they were really, really bad.
Yep.
It was preventing this team from being competitive. Last year, especially towards the end of the year, it was starting to become an engine. They were running the ball against good defenses like Ole Miss and LSU. I just look like, yeah, when you keep your top 5 essentially and you get a chance to develop that unit, that's better than adding 3 transfer portal guys from schools that aren't Florida.
Oh, 100%. It's one of the things I love most. There's no new faces. Like these guys have all just been marinating in the system. I freaking love it. And you mentioned something pertinent. Like Florida's ability to run the football against really good defenses, that's another separator. Like there's a lot of teams that can run the football when you're playing a team like Kentucky. Like, can you run the foot? And I'm not saying you got to run the football for 300 yards, but can you run the football the way you want against a team like Texas or Georgia? Florida has the ability to do that. There's not a lot of teams that can say that. Defense, still. Here's my biggest takeaway from Florida in fall camp. Heard really good things about Brandon Bett, like putting on the weight and kind of being the player that Florida needed him to be. And I know he's like, probably Florida fans looking at me and like, you're going to talk about Brandon Bett first out of this defensive line. Dill, the depth was a question mark. I've heard great things from Jamari Lyons. I've heard great things from Brandon Bett. Sounds like Joseph Mabachu like might be able to give this team some value as a true freshman. There are some big bodies in the middle of the defensive line that have seemingly stepped up during fall camp. And I'll say this, you talk about development. I don't know if there's many better defensive line coaches in the country than Darrell Chapman. And so
you saw Florida have to fight to keep him. I mean, there were teams sniffing around left and right.
I don't blame them.
I don't either. You look about how Tyreek Sapp's gotten better, how much better Caleb Banks has gotten in this unit. George Johnson's development. Like you're seeing guys take big steps in this Florida program.
Who do you think are our top three sackers here?
Sapp and Gums, I feel like are not Sapp, Gums, Banks. Like I don't know. You don't need to make it that complicated. You got two really good players. George Gums, he's certainly a bit of a question mark in terms of how good he can be, but he was coming on last year. So I think Sapp and Banks are two obvious ones.
Yeah,
like, they're the horses.
I'll give you 2 here: George Gums and Jaden Woods. And dude, the buzz is just too loud to ignore from Jaden Woods. This kid, and like you're trying to figure out what you want to do with LJ McCray, Dill. I know you kind of wanted to mention him. He's been dealing with an injury, and it sounds like LJ McCray left that door open for Jaden Woods to really get on the football field, and Jaden Woods fucking beat that thing. I didn't mean to cuss, but he beat that thing down. Excuse my cussing. Now, the other thing I'll say here, Dill, is I do think you're going to get a lot more production from the linebacker room too. That's another storyline that I'm looking for is, hey, can these linebackers take that next step? And I don't think it's crazy to say, hey, these linebackers might combine for around 10 sacks this football season as well. I think you got supercharged linebackers. I know you got a defensive coordinator in Ron Roberts that wants to get after it. That's very exciting. Here's the last question mark I have. Devin Moore, Dejon Johnson, Kermani McLean. There's only 2 spots for them at the boundary cornerback spot. What do you do with the odd man out? right? So if Kermani McLean, and that's who I'm projecting to win that job because he's the one who's been healthy, like Deshaun Johnson been dealing with some injuries. Do you really want to have Deshaun Johnson just on the bench? He's one of the best cornerbacks in the conference. What do you do there? Do you mess around with Deshaun Johnson playing a little bit of nickel corner? I don't know. If you're Florida, you're looking at it and saying, Deshaun Johnson's probably one of the best 5 defensive backs on this football team. How can we get him on the field consistently in 2025?
And I think you can get him on the field as a nickel because he does tackle well. That's probably the big thing. He's a pretty aggressive tackler. He's a good sized corner. I think he can play that nickel role. But I do think that gets a little situational. Like if you're going to be in more of a game where you're running a lot of man coverage, he's a better man coverage guy than either Denson or Gates.
Way better.
Denson and Gates, though, are really good at making plays in space, tackling guys, getting them to the ground. So I do think there's an element of situationalness or whatever.
I think Deshaun Johnson, though, can do that too. And again, I'm not necessarily advocating for it, right? Because I do think Denson and Gates have shown you good things. It's more just about maximizing your defense, maximizing your personnel. We'll see. Florida's got options. Again, these are good problems to have. There are a lot of other teams that are like, we got to find 2 guys that we are confident in on the boundaries. Like Florida's got 3, maybe 4 with Ben Hanks, and saying, all right, how do we get them all on the football field, get our best players on the field? It's a different situation Florida's been in than in years past. Like in years past, they've had some serious depth problems and are like moving guys around out of necessity. Now you're moving guys around in the hope of maximizing your unit. We'll close it out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.